Hello everybody, I am the CCG Collector, and I'd like to welcome you to the first video in my 5-part series on the sealed products of the Star Wars customizable card game. Today we'll be looking at the booster packs, from the humble beginnings in the Premiere set, all the way to the craziness of Episode 1 and Theed Palace. Let's take a look at that. Premiere Limited Edition. Now, this was a 324 card set released in 1995. Booster packs contained 15 cards, 1 rare, 4 uncommons, and 10 commons. Card-wise, printing-wise, it wasn't a great start. You had ink issues, with going so far as some cards appearing bluer than others. You ink blotches, cutting issues. The cards themselves had kind of a scratchy feel to them, but the set itself was pretty darn good, and it got a lot of people hooked as a result. I mean, this is Star Wars, and you can finally recreate Star Wars with your friends. You can be the dark side, the light side, play with Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Darth Vader. I mean, locations, starships, everything. And a very elegant game as well, with the flow of the Force as you play, and your deck actually being your life total. No counters, no nothing. The deck operates as, you know, your dice rolling, your life point tracking, and all that. But you guys don't need me to tell you that. You've played this game. You love this game. Anyway, that's Premiere Limited Edition. They followed it up the next year with the Unlimited Edition. Same amount of cards, same cards per pack, but these were white bordered. And this was really made to correct a lot of the errors in the first set, I believe. For example, Lars Moisture Farm. It said in the black border edition, it said Owen, Beru, and Luke all deploy here for free, but of course Owen Lars, the card, already says deploys for free to Lars Moisture Farm. So little things like that, little corrections and so on and so forth. I mean, the card quality in terms of printing is better. I think you have fewer ink issues. They still kind of have a scratchy feel, but it was a good improvement over the last one. And they followed that up with A New Hope Limited Edition. This one came out in 1996 and consisted of only 162 cards. Same 15 card split, 1 rare, 4 uncommons, and 10 commons. But this really completed the set for the first movie. Or the fourth movie, if you want to look at it that way. You have new characters that you didn't before, like Chewie. You have, finally you have the focus on sort of the cinematic feel of it. Now you have epic events. You have an attack run that you can do. You have the Death Star can blow up planets now. So this really changed Star Wars from just a fun game that you battle and you vie for control of the Force to an actual almost movie feel game where you take on these big challenges, where you blow up the Death Star and you recreate these experiences from the movies. Now, this was revised later on in 1998, and this uses the 9-card booster pack format. It had 1 rare, 3 uncommons, and 5 commons. Now, the Premiere Unlimited was just that, unlimited. It was called the Premiere Unlimited Edition. This one is called the Revised Edition because they actually went back and they changed some rules. I believe it was Special Edition where they introduced a lot of new rules, new concepts, new ways of wording things on the cards and standardizing all that. So they went back and they revised A New Hope, Dagobah, and Hoth. Obviously not in that order. For an example, here I have, of course I picked a card that I don't know how to pronounce, the Mobquet A1 Deluxe Floater, whatever. You'll see on the original one it says, may carry 2 passengers, moves free if Jabba or any bounty hunter are aboard, and I like that even in A New Hope they were looking forward to Jabbas Palace. Also may move for free as a react only to a battle where you have a thief, smuggler, or bounty hunter. In the revised version it says, rather than may carry 2 passengers, may add 1 driver and 1 passenger. So starting off, they didn't really have a concept of these vehicles as any more than just a way of moving people from one place to another with 5 land speed instead of 1. Now, here you have to have a driver for it. And so it's rules like that. Other than that, the cards remain mostly the same, images are the same, destinies are the same, but they updated the rules and the wording on the cards. Also, and this is something fun that I only noticed as I was preparing for this video, all of the revised packs actually have different, well, you can see that the coloration is different, but they also have different background images on the packs from the limited edition to the revised edition. So I thought that's kind of cool. Let's move on to The Empire Strikes Back. And actually, that's interesting. This is another thing I'm noticing just as I'm filming the video. This Hoth pack, limited edition, 15 cards, same split, all that. This set had 162 cards as well. And this, I say on my, I'm going to ignore my notes because I say something wrong in them. I'll correct it as we go on. But it's interesting that they actually list this pack as The Empire Strikes Back Hoth. And that might have been a tie-in with the Empire Strikes Back two-player game and all that. But as far as I know, this is the only pack that has a movie name on it that, that isn't A New Hope, because that's the name of the set. So The Empire Strikes Back Hoth. Again, continuing with the cinematic feel, now this introduced, and I mentioned this in one of my booster pack opening videos, but now it really said that the locations have to be a certain way. You have to have your docking bay here, your interior sights on one side of it, your exterior sights on another side of it. And they did that to set up the marker system. First marker, second marker, all the way out to seventh marker, so that they could have the energy shield covering them, and that they could actually simulate the Empire landing on the planet and fighting their way into the Echo Base. So that was really cool. You had your walkers, you had good pilot characters, some cool weapons. Artillery weapons made their debut in this set, I believe. So this was in 1996. And, as with A New Hope, they revised it in 1998. Same rules, overhaul, same deal. Other than that, not too much changed, except 9 cards in a pack instead of 15. Then we move on to the next stage of The Empire Strikes Back with Dagobah. We've moved now from 15 card packs to 9 card packs. This is the Dagobah Limited Edition. And Dagobah had 180 cards. I believe I read somewhere that Decipher switched from 15 cards to 9 cards so that they wouldn't have to raise the price on the booster packs. And it worked out because people were happy to get fewer commons at once. You pay the same amount of money, but you get more rares and uncommons, in proportion. Also, this is the first set where there were more rares than uncommons or commons, so that kind of worked out. I believe the split was 80 rares, 50 commons, and 50 uncommons. But finally, this was the first set that they stopped having multiple levels of each rarity. So Premier would have R1 and R2, U1 and U2, uncommon 1, uncommon 2, C1 and C2. So some rare cards would occur more on the uncut sheet than others, and same with uncommons and commons. Here it just said if it's a rare, it's a rare, if it's an uncommon, it's an uncommon, and so on. And they wouldn't bring back differing rarities until Death Star 2 and the Episode 1 cards, where they had ultra rares and special rare, super rares, whatever. So that was here. This was 1997, and then in 1999 they went ahead and overhauled the rules in the same way. Dagobah was cool because now it had 2 very different strategies for the players, and this was also something new for the set. The one thing that I really like about the Star Wars customizable card game is that they bring something really new and really fresh with each expansion. And obviously a lot of card games do that, but I think it was really significant with this one. So in Dagobah, you have your focus on the Imperial capital starships and the bounty hunters on the Imperial side, and asteroid fields and so on. But on the Rebel side, now they bring in Jedi tests, and there's only 2 characters in the Rebel side, Yoda and Luke. And you have creatures, and there were a lot of interesting new game concepts in Dagobah. To close out The Empire Strikes Back, we have Cloud City. Now, this was the first set that did not ever revise anything. This one was released in 1997 with 180 cards. And what they brought to the table were updated capturing rules, carbon freezing rules, cloud sectors. So Dagobah had asteroid sectors, which went out one way from a planet. Cloud City had cloud sectors, which went in the other way, and you actually had to descend through the cloud sectors to get to the system itself. So this set is very cheap and easy to find these days because they really overproduced it. And it's the reason that they had their enhanced Cloud City, as well as, enhanced Premier, enhanced Jabbas Palace, just to sell off extra booster packs. Now let's take a look at the Return of the Jedi cards. We start with Jabbas Palace. Same 9 cards, and this one was also overproduced like Cloud City, so these are pretty easy to find. Another reason is that, at least in my mind, it wasn't really, nothing really grabbed the players about this set. It was interesting in that they tried to focus on a new concept, as they always did, with aliens and Jabbas Palace, and you have the idea of this audience chamber, which is sort of a neutral ground, no Imperial or Rebel presence, but a lot of aliens and a lot of independent kind of cards. And the generic forms of aliens would get special bonuses if their leader, like Greedo for Rhodians, probably not that example, but like the Ithorian, whatever his name is. If they're in the audience chamber, those creatures get a certain bonus or something like that. It didn't grip me. I guess it didn't grip a lot of people because they made a lot of these packs, and there are still a lot of them out there. This one, if I didn't mention it, this one was released in 1998. And 1998, coincidentally, was the time that George Lucas decided to release special editions of the Star Wars trilogy. So, in response, Decipher made a 324 card set, the exact same size as the premiere, to make use of this. And it had to be so big because it had all those new rules that I mentioned in the revised packs, and it had cards from all the movies. It introduced objectives. It had a lot of really, really cool cards and a lot of really cool new ways of doing things. So that's special edition. Oh, also in special edition, they really played up the idea of matching pilots. Now you have gold 4, gold 5, gold 6, gold 7, red 6 through 9 or whatever, and matching pilots for all those. So that was pretty cool. And they also had operatives, and generic sites, which I don't quite get the strategy behind them fully, but I understand that like the first day of the tournament after special edition was released, suddenly those operative cards went up in price like crazy because the people with operative decks just blew everyone else out of the water. I don't know. I never played competitively and I wasn't there. But that's the rumor. And now we return to the Jedi with Endor. Here they started dialing back on the production, and consequently Endor packs and Death Star 2 packs are kind of hard to find these days. You're lucky if you can get a pack for under $10, I think. But Endor added a new little wrinkle that about 1 in 9 times, I think, the rare was replaced with a foil card. And this was the first set to have foil cards as a part of it. Before then, there was no concept of foil cards. So it was an interesting set. I think it wasn't as popular because everyone kind of looked ahead to Death Star 2 and they thought, oh man, we're going to get all these spaceships, and we already have troopers, we already have ground battles, so whatever. It's just a bunch of teddy bears. Who wants that? I don't know that was the mindset, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. I always thought it was cool, but I never really scooped them up back when I was a kid, so I just didn't have a chance. Anyway, there are 180 cards in this set, and this was released in 1999. And followed up with Death Star 2. From what I understand, a lot of people's favorite set is Death Star 2. This was in 2000, and it had 182 cards. Now we're up to 11 card packs. 1 rare, 3 uncommons, and 7 commons. But I believe they also increased the price for these packs as well. So this was a really big deal, this Death Star 2 set. You have ultra rares, which are the Emperor and Emperor Palpatine and Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. And the interesting thing about that is that usually in the game, you'd have your powerful characters like Han or like Luke, and they would be powerful cards, but they would have a low destiny value. And that's, the balance of the Force, but more directly, more relevantly, it sort of balanced out your deck. If you had really powerful characters, you were less likely to get really good destiny draws for your blasters or what have you. And vice versa. If you didn't have as powerful of characters, you would kind of be luckier as a result. And that was a cool game mechanic. But those two, powerful cards and Destiny 6 for each of them. Anyway, this set also included exclusive rares for the first time. So they weren't really rare. They were fixed, But in the pre-made starter decks, also the first set to have pre-made starter decks. Premier had starter decks, but they were random. Special Edition had starter decks, but they were random. Death Star 2 had pre-made starter decks. And they actually reprinted cards from Endor and from Hoth and so on with 2000 copyright. So look out for those. I didn't know that until sometime into my collecting. But those included Admiral Piet and Admiral Akbar as cards that you could only get in those starter decks. So that's Death Star 2. And that takes us to the end of what I consider, the traditional Star Wars cards, Star Wars sets. After that, they brought on Episode 1 cards. The movie The Phantom Menace came out, and so there was maybe a demand for the cards like that. But Decipher didn't know if there would be or not, so they released Tatooine. But it only had 90 cards in it, 90 separate cards. Normally you have 300 or 180 or something. This one only had 90. It was a very small set. Same 11 cards, 1 rare, 4 uncommons, 7 commons, or whatever I said, 3 uncommons. But this was the first set to have alternate image cards. 1 in 4 times, a rare of a particular card, Darth Maul or Qui-Gon Jinn or whatever, would be replaced with an alternate image. There were interesting new rules here, politics and senators, but, for the same reason that the movie didn't really resonate with a lot of people, I think these expansions didn't either. But, you know what? People still bought them, and that led them to release Coruscant as a 180 card set. This and the other one were both released in 2001, and Theed Palace as well. These cards, in addition to being, new from Episode 1, they also, some of them had card checklist cards. In the past, you'd get a booster box, and it would have a big sheet with a checklist of cards on it. But here, they actually included checklist cards, and they also included rules cards for, like, pod racing or the Senate stuff that I mentioned before. And Coruscant, and really, I don't want to say really all of them. Tatooine isn't super expensive, but Coruscant is pretty pricey these days, and I think Theed Palace might be up there as well. And that takes us to the last of the normal expansions, Theed Palace. 11 cards per pack. 120 cards, and plus 2 rules or checklist cards. Not too much more to say about this one that I haven't before. It's Episode 1, just in a new location. Now, about this time, Decipher realized that they had a surplus of certain cards on their hand. So, in a way to sneakily offload them, they introduced the Reflections set. First one was just Reflections, 18 card pack, with 1 limited edition foil card. And it says that it contains a selection of randomly assorted white and black border playing cards drawn from the following sets in the Star Wars customizable card game universe: Premier, A New Hope, Hoth, Dagobah, Cloud City, Jabbas Palace, and Special Edition. And that's kind of true. What's more accurate is it contained a lot of Jabbas Palace, a lot of Cloud City, a lot of Premier Unlimited, a foil card, and then maybe 3 cards from the other sets. But hey, foil cards, right? This is the first time, when I was collecting cards, I didn't know that Endor had foils. So this was really cool to me as a kid collecting these. Hey, I can get a foil card guaranteed. And I still remember my first foil card, Cloud City, Guest Quarters or Guest Chambers or whatever it's called. Still have that one. I think that's the one in my binder. So that's Reflections 1. Reflections 2 said, okay, we're going to keep giving them the Jabbas Palace and the Premier Unlimited and the Cloud City, but we'll sweeten the deal a little bit. We'll have some more foil cards, but here, Reflections 2, Expanding the Galaxy, we'll have some Expanded Universe cards. Reflections 2 brought in card concepts from Shadows of the Empire, which was a novel written between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and also the Thrawn trilogy. You can see him right there, Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn. So you had foils from there. You had its own 50-card, 100-card set of cards that you could only get in here, and 28 Expanded Universe cards. Oh, and then 26 combo cards. So it had 54 cards total. A lot of new concepts. Kind of fun. Kind of made it worth purchasing again. These are some of the more expensive packs. $20 or so, 15 to $20, depending on how lucky you get on eBay. These days, of course. It was, I think, $4 back then. And finally, the jackpot. Reflections 3. This was one heck of a pack, and you'd be lucky to find one for under $30 these days, honestly. Now this one has 4 limited edition premium cards, kind of the same deal as in Reflections 2. You have your foil card, your 3 from the Reflections 3 set, and that was a new concept. That introduced a new concept called defensive shields, which I'm not too up on how those work, but I think the idea is because Star Wars never had the concept of a sideboard, because you only played 2 games whenever you were in a tournament, the defensive shields kind of helped you prep and be prepared against certain strategies that were common to play. So if someone liked using insert cards, when this goes to the top of the deck, target player loses, or the player loses 4 force or whatever, there would be a defensive shield to prevent that. Defensive shields prevent Sabak and all sorts of other things. So this is Reflections 3. Also, it had a lot of what I would consider to be fairly overpowered cards in the Reflections 3 set, like Blizzard 4, an AT-AT Walker, that when you play it, search your reserve deck for any warrior, and play it for free on there. Goofy stuff like that. Really big, powerful cards like Stormtrooper Garrison and Boba Fett, Bounty Hunter or whatever it's called, that have a maintenance cost. You have to use Force or it would get you would lose it. So that's Reflections 3. And those are almost all of the booster packs that they released. There was also a limited Japanese print run. Now, I only have A New Hope booster pack. I believe that they released it for Premiere and Hoth as well. Don't know too much about it other than that it's harder to find. It's all in Japanese, and you can get some Japanese cards in Reflections 2 booster packs. Other than that, that's that. So, let's get all these out here. Reflections 3, Reflections 2, Reflections 1, Theed Palace, Coruscant, Tatooine. Out of the way. Death Star 2, Endor, Special Edition, Jabbas Palace, Cloud City, Dagobah, Hoth, A New Hope, Premiere, and Premiere. And as I mentioned before, revised have different artworks, Those are the booster packs. Thank you all for watching. I'm the CCG Collector, and next one I think next video we'll talk about the enhanced packs. But we'll see. Maybe I'll do a different one. Thanks again, CCG Collector.